The vast darkness of space stretched endlessly. A sea of black broken only by distant stars twinkling like fragile candles. The starship Horizon drifted quietly through the uncharted sector, its engines humming softly. Captain Mira Tanaka sat in the command chair, staring at the sensors that displayed the emptiness around them. They had been exploring this region for weeks, a stretch of space abandoned by the charts and ignored by previous expeditions. It was silent, lonely, and beautiful. Then the sensors registered something unusual. A large object floated calmly among a cluster of distant stars. It was massive. Unlike any ship they had ever encountered, the readings showed a structure far larger than their own. But oddly, every instrument they tried to use malfunctioned near it. The compasses spun wildly, navigation systems blinked in confusion, and even the communications array seemed to struggle. "Captain," Lieutenant Rami said, pointing at the monitor, "we have something unusual. It's huge, and it's completely stable. But every compass and sensor we have points away from it. I don't understand how it's floating so calmly while resisting all readings." Mira leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. She had seen strange things before, but the behavior of this ship defied logic. "Show me the visual," she commanded. The screen flickered and cleared. Before them floated an enormous vessel, sleek and silent. Its surface was smooth and unblemished. There were no scorch marks, no signs of age, no evidence that it had traveled through the harsh void of space. It looked untouched, almost new, as if it had been placed there yesterday rather than drifting for decades or centuries. "Send a drone," Mira ordered, her voice steady but filled with curiosity. "I want to know what we're dealing with before we put anyone in danger." The drone launched from the ship with a soft hiss, its cameras feeding live images back to the horizon. As it approached the vessel, the crew saw something even stranger. The structure was enormous, with corridors and chambers that suggested advanced engineering. The design was unlike anything human, but it also held a strange elegance, a logic that seemed almost natural. "Look at this," said Rami, pointing at the screen. "No debris, no damage. It's perfect. And I can't get a single stable reading from any system. It's like it's hiding itself from us." Mira's mind raced. "Or like it doesn't want to be found," she said softly. The drone moved closer, scanning the exterior. Small lights blinked in patterns the crew could not recognize. Some flickered and disappeared before the cameras could capture them clearly. The vessel seemed alive in some way, responding subtly to the presence of the drone. "Captain," said Ensign Lara, the communications officer, her voice hesitant, "I'm getting faint signals, but they're scrambled. Something is interfering with every attempt to decode them." Mira leaned back in her chair, studying the drifting vessel. There was no doubt about it. This was not an ordinary ship. It was untouched, pristine, and yet impossible to approach safely using their usual instruments. Every compass pointing away was a warning, or perhaps a test. "We need a closer look," she said finally. "I want a boarding party ready. Carefully. We don't know what we're dealing with, but we have to find out." The crew prepared cautiously. Donning their suits, they went over every protocol, checking their instruments, their weapons, and their communication systems. Despite the calm exterior of the ship, there was a tension among them, a sense of unease that grew as they approached. As the boarding party made contact, the outer hull of the vessel was smooth, cold, and unyielding. There were no doors, no hatches, no visible entry points. Yet as the team circled the ship, a panel silently slid open, allowing them to enter without effort. The silence inside was profound, broken only by the soft hiss of their suits and the faint hum of the ship itself. Inside, the corridors were clean, almost impossibly so. Light flowed from invisible sources, illuminating the metallic walls with a soft glow. The air, though thin, was breathable. The architecture was strange but functional, and symbols of unknown origin lined the walls. The crew felt an uncanny sense of order, a design that seemed to anticipate their every movement. "Stay close," Mira instructed, her hand hovering near her sidearm. "We don't know if this place is abandoned or active." As they moved deeper, the corridors seemed to shift subtly. Shadows played tricks on the eyes, and sometimes the walls appeared to elongate or bend slightly. Lieutenant Rami whispered, "It's like the ship is alive, responding to us." They reached a large chamber at the center of the vessel. It was a control room, filled with consoles and panels. Holographic displays flickered to life as they approached, revealing images of beings that looked alien. They were frozen in mid-action, performing tasks as if paused in time. Mira stepped closer to study them. The holograms reacted to her presence. Screens flickered, sequences of alien symbols appeared, and a soft hum filled the room. One of the images even seemed to look directly at her, though the eyes were not human, glowing faintly with an inner light. "This is incredible," whispered Ensign Lara. They're showing us something. But what? I can't read it." Rami moved to the nearest console, trying to interact. The system seemed intuitive yet alien. It responded to his thoughts. Flashing sequences of star maps, strange numbers, and geometric patterns. The crew began to feel a subtle pull in their minds, as if the ship was reaching into them, probing for understanding. "It's not just a ship," Rami said, his voice quiet and tense. "It's aware of us." Mira frowned. She had dealt with anomalies before, but this was different. The ship was pristine, untouched, yet responsive. It wasn't threatening, not yet, but it was testing them in ways they could not understand. A low hum filled the room, vibrating through the floors and walls. Some of the crew felt lightheaded. Others felt an odd warmth in their minds, as if the ship was communicating through sensation rather than sound. Lara recorded everything, careful to preserve the data for analysis, though she knew no one on the horizon would fully understand it yet. "Captain," she said, "I think the ship is showing us possibilities. Knowledge, maybe. But it's guarded. It doesn't just give itself away." Mira studied the holograms and symbols. She could feel the weight of countless decisions, of civilizations perhaps long gone, reflected in this ship. Every compass pointing away, every malfunctioning instrument, every subtle reaction of the vessel, it was all part of a design that humans had yet to comprehend. Suddenly, the chamber pulsed with light. The holograms shifted, showing images not of aliens but of stars, worlds, and planets across uncharted space. Some were flourishing, some were dying. Mira's heart raced as she realized what the ship might be: a preserver of civilizations, a guardian of knowledge and history. "We need to understand it," she said firmly. "Not take it, not exploit it. Just learn." As the team explored further, they found signs of advanced energy systems, corridors that led to observation decks with impossible views of distant galaxies, and chambers filled with alien artifacts. The ship seemed designed to teach, to test, and to preserve. But even as they marveled at the architecture and technology, there was a warning in every detail. The ship was untouched because it chose to remain so. Every compass pointing away was a subtle signal. Approach with respect, or risk being lost in the vastness of what they could not yet understand. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The crew returned to the horizon for debriefing, carrying data that no human could fully interpret yet. Mira stood on the bridge, staring at the drifting vessel through the viewport. It floated silently, calm and perfect, indifferent to human observation, yet somehow aware. "We have found something extraordinary," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Something beyond our understanding. We must be careful. We are guests here, and the rules are not ours." The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, and the untouched ship remained suspended in the void, every compass pointing away from it, guarding its secrets, waiting for those who could approach it with curiosity, courage, and respect. Mira felt a mixture of awe and caution. Humanity had discovered something ancient, intelligent, and powerful. This ship was not just a vessel. It was a test, a mystery, and perhaps a teacher. And for the first time, she understood that the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than any chart, any map, or any theory could ever reveal. The horizon drifted slowly away, but Mira knew this was only the beginning. The untouched ship awaited further understanding, and humans had only just begun to glimpse its secrets. The untouched ship drifted silently in the darkness of space, seemingly indifferent to the human presence nearby. The horizon had moved a safe distance away, but Captain Mira Tanaka could not stop thinking about the strange vessel. Its calmness was unsettling. Its perfection was unlike anything they had ever seen. Most of all, the sense that it was aware of them lingered in every corner of her mind. "We need to understand more," Mira said to Lieutenant Rami, who had been studying the drone footage and sensor data for hours. "Not just the structure, but what it's trying to tell us." Rami rubbed his temple. "It's not just a ship, Captain. I've never seen anything like it. The readings are strange. It's as if the ship responds to our thoughts, to our intentions." Mira nodded. "Then we go back. Carefully. We need a small team. Only the best, most careful minds. No rush. No mistakes." The boarding team prepared again. This time, more deliberately. They reviewed protocols, checked every instrument, and equipped themselves with portable analyzers designed to bypass normal sensor interference. It was a cautious approach. But even with preparation, there was a quiet tension in the air. The ship was calm, but that calmness was almost threatening in its precision. As the team approached, the exterior of the ship remained unchanged, smooth and unbroken. The panel that had opened before slid aside automatically, allowing them to enter. The air inside was cool and breathable, and the soft glow of the walls illuminated everything without the need for lights. "Keep your eyes open," Mira warned. "And don't touch anything unless we're sure it's safe." The corridors seemed familiar, yet alien. Symbols lined the walls, glowing faintly as if recognizing their presence. The air was filled with a faint hum, a vibration that resonated in their bones rather than their ears. Each step felt heavier than the last, not because of gravity, but because of the weight of being observed by something beyond understanding. They reached the large central chamber again. The holograms of the alien crew flickered to life. But this time, they were more detailed. The beings moved slightly, their forms showing subtle signs of life, though frozen in time. The holograms did not speak, yet the humans could feel the flow of information, as if thoughts and memories were pressing against the edges of their minds. Rami moved closer to one of the consoles, curious despite the warnings. His fingers hovered over the controls, and the screen changed in response. Alien symbols shifted, and lines of geometry formed complex patterns. Then, star maps appeared, displaying regions of space they had never charted. Some areas glowed brightly, while others were dark, almost as if warning against approach. "Captain," Rami said quietly, "this ship, it's showing us something. Not just maps, but events. History, maybe. It's as if it wants to teach us, but only if we're ready to learn." Mira stepped closer. She could feel a subtle pull in her mind, images forming in her thoughts that she did not recognize. They were fleeting visions of distant worlds, civilizations rising and falling, and technologies beyond human understanding. The ship was communicating, but in a language that was not words. It spoke through impressions, patterns, and intuition. Ensign Lara, who had been recording everything, looked up. "It's almost overwhelming. My mind keeps trying to organize it into something familiar, but it's too vast, too different." The team spent hours exploring. Every corridor they entered seemed to shift slightly, guiding them toward areas of interest. Observation decks revealed galaxies in detail, planets forming and dying in real time. They could see civilizations at the peak of their power and others crumbling under forces they could not identify. Mira realized the ship was more than a vessel, it was a library, a guardian of knowledge. But unlike a human library, it did not simply store information. It evaluated those who approached it. Every choice, every action, seemed to be observed, tested, and understood. Rami paused before a console and frowned. "Captain, I think it's evaluating us. Look at this sequence. It reacts to our thoughts. When I think about curiosity, it opens pathways. When I think about greed, it closes them, 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 closes them." Mira's heart quickened. "It's a test," she whispered. "It wants to know who we are, what we intend, and it's judging." The team moved cautiously deeper into the ship. They found chambers filled with alien devices, some of which seemed functional, others purely informational. One device displayed holographic constructs of energy and matter, showing processes that defied human physics. The crew could not touch it safely, yet observing it provided a subtle understanding of concepts that had taken humanity centuries to begin exploring. Suddenly, the ship pulsed. The air shimmered with light, and the walls seemed to bend slightly, disorienting the team. Mira grabbed the nearest railing, steadying herself. The pulse was not harmful, but it was powerful, almost like a warning. "Stay calm," she instructed. "It's testing us again." The holograms responded. They shifted, showing not only their own ship but other civilizations that had encountered similar vessels. Some had failed, their civilizations lost or forgotten. Others had succeeded, gaining knowledge that allowed them to rise and flourish. The lesson was clear. The ship did not give itself away to the unworthy. It chose carefully who could access its secrets. Rami's voice trembled slightly. "Captain, it's showing us the consequences of failure. We can't take this lightly." Mira nodded. "Then we move forward with respect. Every step we take must honor what this ship represents. We're guests here, and we must prove ourselves worthy." Hours passed as they explored, the ship guiding them, testing their intentions. Some crew members felt moments of doubt, others moments of wonder. The experience was overwhelming, but they learned to focus on observation and understanding rather than desire or fear. In a chamber filled with floating holographic spheres, Mira found something extraordinary. The spheres contained information about the rise and fall of civilizations across the galaxy. Each sphere pulsed with energy, displaying histories, technologies, and philosophical teachings. Mira realized that the ship was not just a repository of knowledge. It was a teacher, a guide, and a protector of civilizations that had the potential to rise or fall depending on their choices. "Captain," Lara said softly, "it's beautiful. It's showing us not just what was, but what could be. If we understand it, humanity could learn so much." Mira felt a deep sense of responsibility. This was more than a discovery. It was a challenge. Humanity had been given a glimpse of something vast and intelligent, something that required courage, integrity, and wisdom to comprehend. "We need to record everything carefully," she said. "Not for profit, not for fame, but for knowledge, for understanding. This ship is more than any of us. It is a measure of what we can become." As they prepared to leave the ship for the first time, the crew felt a mixture of awe and relief. The corridors seemed to acknowledge their respect, guiding them safely back to the entry point. The panel closed behind them, and the ship returned to its silent drift in the void. On the horizon, the team debriefed. Mira reviewed the data with a sense of wonder. Every recording, every reading, every holographic map was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The untouched ship was more than a vessel. It was a living archive, an intelligent observer, and perhaps a test of human potential. "We have to return," Rami said. "We can't fully understand it in one visit. But we've seen enough to know it's aware. It's alive in some way, And it responds to our intentions. Mira nodded. We will return, but carefully. And we will continue to learn. This is not just exploration, it's a responsibility. We are being judged not by power or technology, but by how we act, how we think, and what we value. The untouched ship floated silently as the horizon moved away. Its surface reflected the distant starlight. Smooth and unbroken. Calm, yet watchful. Every compass pointed away from it. A reminder that this was no ordinary discovery. This was a challenge, a mystery, and an invitation to humanity to rise beyond what they knew. As the crew settled in, each felt a quiet determination. They had glimpsed the vast potential of the universe, and they had seen that humanity's place in it was not guaranteed. Knowledge, power, and survival were not given freely. They were earned through understanding, integrity, and courage. Mira looked out at the drifting ship, her mind racing with possibilities. The untouched vessel awaited those who could approach it with respect and wisdom. Humanity had taken its first step into a larger universe, and the lessons they learned here would shape their future for generations. In the darkness of space, the ship remained, calm and silent, a guardian of knowledge, a teacher, and a test. The horizon had left, but the journey had only begun. The crew of the Horizon understood one thing clearly. They were no longer just explorers. They were students of something far greater. A lesson in the vastness of space, and a challenge to humanity's understanding of itself. The untouched ship would wait, patiently, for those ready to learn, ready to prove that they were worthy of the knowledge it held. The untouched ship remained in the dark void of space, silent and unmoving, as if it had been waiting for the humans all along. The Horizon drifted nearby, engines on standby, while Captain Mira Tanaka and her crew prepared for another boarding. The first encounter had left them in awe, but it had also planted a seed of unease. They knew this ship was not merely a vessel, it was an intelligence, alive in ways they could barely comprehend. We need to understand its purpose, Mira said to Rami as they reviewed the data collected from their previous visit. The holograms, the star maps, the histories. It's not just storing knowledge. It's evaluating us. Testing us. Rami nodded, his face tense. I've been reviewing the sequences. It responds to our thoughts, our intentions. Curiosity is welcomed. Greed or recklessness is rejected, and I think it's going to test us further this time. Mira's gaze hardened. Then, we must be careful. We move slowly, deliberately. Every action matters. The boarding team suited up once more, their movements precise. Each member understood the unspoken rule. The ship judged not only their intellect, but their character. The corridors inside were calm and pristine, the same as before. But now the crew noticed subtle changes. Some corridors seemed longer, others shorter, and certain doors appeared or vanished, depending on the team's focus. The ship's interior seemed to adapt to their presence, almost as if it could read their intentions. As they reached the central chamber, the holograms flickered to life again. This time, the figures of the alien crew were more vivid. They moved slightly, performing tasks frozen in mid-motion. But their eyes seemed to follow the humans. The team felt the weight of observation, as if their every thought was being examined. Rami approached one of the consoles cautiously. As he did, a sequence of symbols appeared, forming a pattern that pulsed with energy. When he tried to touch it, the pattern shifted away, retreating like a living thing. It's testing us, he murmured. Not with danger, but with patience. It wants to see how we respond. Mira nodded. We don't rush. We observe. We learn. That's how we show worthiness. The team split into small groups to explore deeper sections of the ship. Some chambers contained holographic representations of alien technologies, impossible machines that defied their understanding of physics. Others displayed simulations of civilizations rising and falling, illustrating decisions and consequences with clarity that was both enlightening and unsettling. Ensign Lara paused at one chamber, her hand hovering over a holographic sphere that displayed a flourishing alien world. "Look at this," she whispered. "Every decision they made is recorded. Every success, every failure. It's teaching us." Rami joined her. "Yes, but it's also warning us. The ship doesn't just show knowledge. It shows responsibility. Power without wisdom leads to destruction. That's the lesson." As they explored further, a sudden pulse of energy filled the corridors. Gravity shifted slightly, and the walls seemed to bend, disorienting the team. Some stumbled, clutching the smooth surfaces to steady themselves. The pulse was not harmful, but it was precise, deliberate, almost like a test of composure. "Stay focused," Mira shouted. "It's testing our control, our reactions. Don't panic." The holograms responded again. They shifted, displaying images of civilizations that had failed similar tests. Some had been consumed by their own hubris. Others lost because of greed or fear. The crew realized that this ship did not merely observe, it judged, and it acted in subtle ways to reveal the nature of those who approached it. Lieutenant Rami, increasingly fascinated, tried to interpret one of the alien symbols. As he did, a vision filled his mind. A world destroyed by war, a civilization collapsing under its own ambitions. The experience was vivid, almost tangible. He staggered back. Gasping, Mira placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Focus, Rami. It's showing you possibilities, not threats. Learn from them. Don't fear them." The team pressed on, entering a vast chamber filled with floating orbs of light. Each orb contained knowledge, technologies, histories, and philosophical concepts from civilizations across the galaxy. Some orbs pulsed with gentle warmth, others with sharp, almost aggressive energy. The crew realized that each orb represented not only information but a challenge. The ship would allow access only to those who approached with humility, patience, and respect. Mira reached toward an orb carefully. As her hand neared it, the orb reacted, expanding and projecting visions into her mind. She saw civilizations rising from primitive beginnings, learning, evolving, and sometimes falling into ruin. The images were fast, overwhelming, yet clear in their message. Knowledge must be earned, and wisdom must guide its use. "Captain," Lara said softly, "it's showing us potential futures, for humanity, maybe, and for ourselves individually." Mira took a deep breath, absorbing the lesson. "We must proceed with caution. Every step, every thought, every choice matters here." Suddenly, a member of the crew, Engineer Call, reached impulsively toward another orb, seeking to manipulate it for his own curiosity. The orb reacted immediately, energy flared, and Call staggered, overwhelmed by visions of his deepest fears and insecurities. The team rushed to help him, but it was clear the ship had judged him, not to harm, but to teach. Mira helped him steady himself. "You must learn restraint," she said gently. "The ship reveals knowledge only to those who seek it responsibly, not for power or pride." Call nodded, shaken but understanding. The experience reinforced the lesson for all. This vessel was more than a library. It was a living test of character, evaluating those who sought to learn. The team moved to a deeper section of the ship, where the air seemed to hum with quiet energy. The walls displayed sequences of alien mathematics and physics, concepts that defied human understanding, yet resonated intuitively when observed carefully. Mira realized that the ship's intelligence was not only moral, but also intellectual. It measured not just intent, but the capacity to understand and integrate knowledge responsibly. Rami was fascinated. "Captain, this is beyond anything we've ever known. The ship isn't just teaching us, it's elevating us. Our minds are adapting to the information in ways I can't fully explain." Mira nodded, feeling the subtle changes in her own thoughts. The experience was disorienting, yet enlightening. She realized that this ship had seen countless civilizations and had refined its methods over millennia. It was patient, precise, and discerning. It did not force knowledge upon anyone, but those who proved themselves could gain insights beyond imagination. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The team's minds were full, and yet they understood that they had barely scratched the surface. The ship guided them gently, yet its testing was constant. Every pulse, every shift in the corridors, every holographic sequence was designed to observe, evaluate, and teach. As they prepared to leave the inner chambers, the ship pulsed again. The corridors shimmered, and the walls seemed to stretch and contract subtly. The team felt a collective sensation of being observed not critically, but analytically. The ship was assessing their cohesion, their respect for the knowledge, and their ability to act as a group without succumbing to fear or desire. Mira addressed the crew. Remember what we've learned. Knowledge is not a tool for pride or greed. It is a responsibility. The ship is showing us how to rise, but only if we respect its lessons. They reached the entry chamber once more, and the panel opened as before, allowing them to exit. The airlock sealed behind them, and the horizon's sensors slowly returned to normal as they moved away. The ship floated silently, calm and indifferent, yet alive in its awareness. Every compass still pointed away, a constant reminder that this was no ordinary discovery. On the bridge of the horizon, the crew debriefed. Mira reviewed the recordings, the holographic sequences, and the mental impressions each team member had experienced. The sheer magnitude of the ship's knowledge was staggering. They had glimpsed civilizations beyond comprehension, technologies far advanced beyond human capabilities, and lessons in morality and wisdom that challenged their very understanding of themselves. We've seen enough to know, Rami said carefully, that this ship is not something we can conquer or control. It is something we must learn from. Respect and honor. Our survival, our growth, depends on how we approach it. Mira nodded. Exactly. And that's the challenge. Humanity is not measured by power alone, but by courage, wisdom, and restraint. This ship is showing us the path and testing whether we can walk it responsibly. The untouched vessel drifted silently in the void, every compass pointing away. Calm, perfect, and observant. It was a teacher, a guardian, and a test. Humanity had been challenged to prove its worth, not through force or technology, but through integrity, intelligence, and humility. As the horizon prepared for the journey home, each crew member reflected on what they had experienced. They had glimpsed a greater universe, one that demanded respect, patience, and moral clarity. The untouched ship had shown them that the path to advancement was not simply about knowledge, but about the character required to wield it wisely. Mira looked out at the drifting vessel, a sense of determination settling in her chest. They would return, better prepared, wiser, and more cautious. The ship was patient, it could wait, but humanity had a responsibility now, to learn, to grow, and to rise to the challenge it had been presented with. The darkness of space stretched endlessly, but in that emptiness floated a beacon of knowledge and judgment. The untouched ship remained silent, yet it was alive in every sense that mattered. It waited for those who could approach with curiosity, courage, and respect, offering wisdom to those who proved themselves worthy. The crew of the Horizon understood something fundamental. The universe was not merely a place to explore or conquer. It was a teacher, a challenge, and a reflection of their own potential. Humanity had been given its first true lesson, and the path forward would test every quality they possessed. As the stars glimmered beyond the viewport, Mira allowed herself a small, resolute smile. The untouched ship was a mystery, but it was also a guide, and humanity, for the first time, had a chance to rise to the challenge of something far greater than themselves. The untouched ship floated silently in the cold void, its surface reflecting the distant light of countless stars. The horizon had returned, its engines idling as Captain Mira Tanaka and her crew prepared for their final approach. Each member of the team felt a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. They had learned much from their previous visits, but the ship still held mysteries that tested the boundaries of human understanding. "We've come far," Mira said softly, standing on the bridge as she gazed at the drifting vessel. "But this is the final step. Whatever we learn today will shape humanity's place in the universe." Lieutenant Rami checked the data streams, noting the subtle energy fluctuations of the ship. "Captain, it's almost like it knows we are here." The readings show intelligence, but this time it's different, stronger, more focused. "I think it's preparing to communicate directly," Mira nodded. "Then we proceed carefully. Every thought, every action, matters." The boarding party entered the ship through the familiar airlock. The corridors were unchanged, pristine and calm. Yet now the crew noticed a sense of anticipation in the hum that filled the walls. The ship seemed aware of their intent, as if it was waiting to see if they were ready for the final lesson. As they moved deeper, the holograms in the central chamber activated with unusual clarity. The alien figures were no longer frozen in mid-action but appeared to move naturally, their eyes glowing faintly, conveying awareness and intelligence. The crew felt an almost tangible presence, as if they were not alone, as if the ship itself was observing them with understanding and judgment. Rami approached a console and carefully interacted with the holographic interface. Symbols and sequences appeared, forming patterns that resonated in his mind. This time, the ship did not test impulsively. Instead, it offered insight, showing the crew glimpses of civilizations that had encountered similar vessels. Some had succeeded, using knowledge wisely to thrive. Others had failed, consumed by ambition, greed, or fear. Captain Mira stepped forward, her heart pounding. She reached out toward one of the holographic sequences, and immediately, her mind was filled with visions. She saw countless worlds, countless choices, and countless consequences. The ship's purpose became clear. It preserved knowledge. It guided. And it judged. It offered understanding to those who approached with courage, wisdom, and humility. The crew watched in awe as the ship displayed not only knowledge but potential futures. They saw humanity on different paths, some leading to technological and moral advancement, others descending into self-destruction through hubris and greed. The ship was teaching, warning, and guiding all at once. Suddenly, a chamber shifted, and a new room appeared before them. It was filled with spheres of light, each containing vast amounts of knowledge. Mira could feel the weight of centuries of civilizations within them. The energy was overwhelming, yet not threatening. It was a test of focus, restraint, and respect. Rami stepped toward a sphere but paused. "Captain, we have to be careful. The last time someone acted impulsively, the ship showed them their deepest fears. We cannot let desire control us." Mira nodded. "We approach with clarity and respect. That is the only way to truly learn." The crew moved forward as a unit, their minds aligned with caution and curiosity. Each sphere responded to their presence, opening pathways of understanding without forcing knowledge upon them. They saw advanced technologies, principles of energy and physics that defied human understanding, and philosophical insights that challenged their conception of morality, life, and existence. In one sphere, Mira saw visions of civilizations that had once reached great heights and then fallen because they misused their knowledge. She understood that the ship's purpose was not to intervene directly but to preserve and guide. It offered wisdom, but it demanded discernment and responsibility. Lieutenant Rami reached another sphere, and this time the ship interacted with him differently. It projected a sequence that allowed him to understand complex alien mathematics intuitively. His mind expanded with the concepts, and he felt a profound connection to knowledge he had never imagined. Yet he also felt a warning. With understanding came responsibility. Knowledge misused could destroy not only a civilization, but also the individual who wielded it. The crew realized that the ship's tests were not merely intellectual but moral. Every action, every thought, and every intention were being observed. The vessel was teaching them to balance curiosity with wisdom, ambition with restraint, and intelligence with empathy. Ensign Lara stepped forward cautiously and touched a small orb. The energy pulsed through her mind, and she saw visions of her own potential, both personal and for humanity. The ship showed her what could be achieved if knowledge was used wisely. Advances in medicine, exploration, energy, and peace. But she also saw the consequences of arrogance, ignorance, and selfishness. The experience left her breathless and reflective. Captain Mira approached the final chamber, where the largest sphere hovered. It contained not only knowledge but an energy signature that resonated with the core of the ship itself. She understood instinctively that this was the ultimate test, a direct interface with the intelligence of the vessel. She reached out and allowed herself to connect fully. The visions flooded her mind. Civilizations across the galaxy. Some thriving, some lost. The principles of energy, life, and consciousness flowed through her understanding. Time seemed to collapse. She saw the past, present, and possible futures all at once. The ship communicated a message. Not in words, but in clarity of thought. It did not intervene in the affairs of civilizations, unless they proved capable of understanding and responsibility. It guided those who were willing to learn, yet it withheld from those driven by selfishness or fear. Mira realized that this ship had witnessed the rise and fall of countless species and had refined its methods over millennia. It was patient, intelligent, and just. She felt the weight of humanity's potential pressing upon her. The ship was not merely a repository of knowledge. It was a guardian, a teacher, and a test. It offered insight, but it required moral and intellectual integrity in return. The visions subsided, leaving Mira with a profound sense of understanding. She stepped back from the sphere, breathless but resolute. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Not the ship, but the process. It teaches, it guides, and it waits. We are being entrusted with the responsibility to learn and to act wisely." Rami and Lara approached, their faces reflecting the same awe and clarity. Each had experienced visions that expanded their minds and challenged their understanding. Together, the crew realized that humanity had been given a rare opportunity to learn from an intelligence far beyond their own, to rise through wisdom rather than force. Captain Mira addressed her team. "We have seen the potential and the risks. The ship has judged us, not by what we possess, but by who we are and how we act. We must honor that trust. Humanity's future depends on it." The crew prepared to leave the ship, carrying with them recordings, holographic sequences, and the understanding that knowledge alone was not enough. Wisdom, restraint, and integrity were equally important. As they passed through the familiar airlock, the vessel remained silent, drifting calmly in space. Every compass still pointed away, a reminder that this was no ordinary discovery, it was a measure of worthiness. On the horizon, the crew debriefed. The data they had collected was unlike anything humanity had encountered. Advanced technologies, histories of lost civilizations, philosophical principles, all of it held within the untouched ship. But the greatest lesson was clear. Knowledge must be balanced with wisdom, understanding, and moral responsibility. Mira reflected on their journey. Humanity had glimpsed something far greater than themselves. Something that tested not only intellect but character. They had learned that the universe was not merely to be explored or conquered, but respected, understood, and engaged with responsibly. The untouched ship remained in the darkness, a silent guardian of knowledge, a teacher, and a test. It waited for those who approached with curiosity, courage, and respect, offering insight to those who proved themselves worthy. It had preserved the histories of countless civilizations and offered guidance to those ready to learn. As the horizon began its journey home, Mira allowed herself a sense of hope. Humanity had been challenged, tested, and inspired. The ship's lessons would not be forgotten. They had glimpsed the potential for greatness, the responsibility that came with knowledge, and the importance of character in the face of the unknown. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and the untouched ship drifted silently among them, calm, perfect, and watchful. Humanity had taken its first true step into a larger universe, guided by intelligence far beyond its own. The lessons learned here would shape not only the crew of the Horizon but generations of humans to come. Mira turned to her team. We've been given something rare. A chance to rise, to learn, to prove that we are worthy. Let us not squander it. The crew nodded, each feeling the weight and the privilege of the experience. They had witnessed a cosmic intelligence, learned from it, and survived its test. They had been challenged to see not only the universe but themselves with clarity and humility. The untouched ship continued to drift, its secrets preserved, waiting for the next travelers brave enough and worthy enough to approach. And humanity, for the first time, had a chance to rise not through dominance, but through wisdom, courage, and integrity. In the vast emptiness of space, the ship floated calmly, every compass pointing away, its silence a testament to its patience, intelligence, and judgment. It was a guardian, a teacher, and a reminder that the universe was vast, mysterious, and full of lessons for those ready to learn. Captain Mira Tanaka knew one thing for certain. Humanity had glimpsed a higher potential, and the journey had only just begun. The untouched ship had shown them that greatness was not given. It was earned, and the stars beyond were waiting for those willing to rise to the challenge. The Horizon set its course for home, carrying knowledge, insight, and the promise of a future shaped not by force, but by wisdom. And in the silent darkness of space, the untouched ship remained, patient, eternal, and watching.